Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous, your top Neil Diamond songs. They tell a story that fills you with genuine joy. Stadiums featuring Sweet Caroline and America. However, what if the man in the back those classic songs, a myth who after 50 years of touring, I had to halt? Imagine if his strong voice, once a power of nature, is now confronted with a quiet, unrelenting foe. This video explores his difficult early years, the difficult battles he has throughout his career, the difficult paths of his connections, and the majority of most, essential, the tragic truth of his life, currently residing with Parkinson's disease. This illustrates how a man who founded a sound empire and now discovers a distinct type of peaceful tranquility instances, and how his biggest obstacle turned into a tremendous acceptance lesson. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, Neil Diamond York did not have a steady home from childhood. He had a dry goods father, merchant, who relocated the family on a regular basis to new places in order to be near newly opened shops. When young Neil reached the 12th grade, having gone to 9 various educational institutions, this constant turmoil, this never-ending loop of existence, the new child made important challenges for him to adapt to his environment. One may think about the emotional cost of these repeated change had to take, compelling a little kid to constantly navigating unfamiliar social scenery and discover his position. This constant relocation during childhood probably played a part in a deep-seated sense of alienation and loneliness. The outside unpredictability of his he was forced inward by life, which created an inner world in which he found comfort and a potent form of communication. This early encounter directly formed his creative identity and the heart of many of his finest popular tunes. Long before he began to sing, regarding being a man who lives alone, the difficulties of always adjusting to new surroundings cultivated in him a thoughtful disposition that might eventually describe his writing songs. An important turning point came when Neil was 16 years old. He participated at the Jewish camp in Surprise Lake, New York's upstate summer camp. There he went to see a folk performance, Pete Seeger, singer. Seeger's uncooked, genuine performance, in addition to observing other kids perform their own compositions, revealed to Neil a new realm of potentialities. He understood that he could compose his own music. He obtained a guitar, started lessons, and nearly started making his own right-away tunes. This growing enthusiasm gave an essential conduit, assisting him in channeling and let go of his young frustrations. Neil first enrolled at fencing at New York University scholarship, including going after a pre-med curriculum, but his actual passion lay somewhere else. He located his classrooms, dull, his thoughts often straying to the songs and melodies whirling inside him. He favored dedicating his endeavors to compose music, attempting frantically to publish them. Ultimately left college in 1960, returned a year later to a school commerce program, but eventually departed permanently in 1965. This last departure occurred as Sunbeam Music Publishing extended an offer to him for 16 weeks. $5 a week creating music is a substantial amount, equal to roughly $530 per week in 2024. His early songwriter's career was full of difficulties. He had trouble selling his first compositions, suffering from rejection, following 8 long years of rejection. At one moment, he made just enough money to survive on just 35 cents every day. On food. He frequently wrote wherever he might find a peaceful place, even on buses, area in New York over the Birdland Club, York City. He put his entire being into his lyrics, adding a lot of words, but publishers frequently looked for easy hooks for commercial attractiveness. His initial hits, such as I assume that they were renowned for their performance by other musicians, like the Monkey Sprier, to his own versions being published. There is a persistent tension during this time. During Neil Diamond's formative years, the ongoing tension between his artistic vision and the business requirements of the music business. He was born songwriter who has a strong wish for intense emotional display, but the at first industry pushed him in the direction of simpler pop that is easier to market. This early battle for artistic authority and acknowledgement of his distinct Voice probably enhanced his determination and molded his later creative journey on one's own. Neil Diamond's initial success, but celebrated, accompanied by a unique collection of major obstacles. He made a contract with Bang Records in 1966, putting out hits like Man Alone and Cherry Cherry. But the label quickly made him feel constrained, anticipations. He was desperate to make more profound, reflective music, like Brooklyn, his autobiographical song roads. Bang Records, his label, advocated for straightforward pop tunes, particularly considering his more individual works, such as Shiloh, not sufficiently commercial. Beyond imaginative discrepancies, he was also unhappy with his royalties. This resulted in a lengthy, acrimonious court case that continued until February 18, 1977. He battled valiantly to cancel his contract and get back possession of the rights to his earlier master recordings. This strict legal battle was accompanied by a discernible decline in his sales of records and achievement in the workplace. This battle for his artistic flexibility greatly influenced his identity as a creative person who declined to be restricted, an attribute that would characterize his whole career. In 1980, Neil Diamond made a huge leap, stepping into the movie industry. He appeared in the remake of The Jazz Singer, the iconic film from 1927. He agreed to the part as an homage to Al Jolson, one of the heroes of his youth. Additionally, he took up the enormous task of authoring the complete soundtrack, an intimidating difficulty for someone who has never experience in acting. This undertaking but turned into a significant conflict in his professional life. Although the movie itself was largely criticized by commentators, with some reviewers referring to his performance absurdly narcissistic and offensive, sadly, the soundtrack received a huge financial success. He even got a Golden Globe nomination, but additionally received the inaugural Razzie Award for Worst Performer. In spite of the criticism, the soundtrack sold better than the film. More than 6 million copies in the US states, and produced 3 singles. In the top 10, Hello America, Love on the Rocks Once More. This result indicates that the musical prowess of Neil Diamond and his strong rapport with his audience were so powerful that they could defeat even an acting debut that was heavily ridiculed. To make matters more complicated, prior to while filming, he had surgery to remove a spinal tumor and was confined to a wheelchair for several months, turning the movie into a personal victory over hardship, in spite of its crucial reception. Even though more than 130 millions of records globally and constantly bringing enthusiastic fans into arenas, Neil Diamond frequently discussed his admirers feeling alienated. He is renowned for called himself an isolated man, a theme that appears in a lot of his songs, such as his deeply intimate hit, I Am, I Said. He engaged in intense wrestling, sentiments of isolation, insecurity, and a widespread feeling of loneliness, even with widespread acclaim and admiration. He characterized himself as a private individual who felt cut off from the general public character that he had painstakingly developed as a performer. I Am, I Said, his song, took him. Writing took 4 months. A procedure, he stated, evoked all of his feelings as he struggled with issues of identity and inclusion in spite of his enormous achievement. He acknowledged that he felt hollow within, even after reaching his greatest dreams. Additionally, he said that being located, the scariest thing you can hope for, is out, as everyone has a facade, recognizing the strain of preserving one's reputation. This demonstrates a significant contradiction in Neil Diamond's life. Great popular success and adoration and intense personal intimacy coexisted, sentiments of isolation, loneliness, and doubting oneself. His songs, frequently weak and reflective, turned into a strong channel for this private challenges, which makes him relatable to millions, despite his sense of disconnection from his audience persona. The facade he mentioned implies the tremendous strain of upholding a public perception, which probably grew as personal hardships. His battle to achieve inner calm in spite of success on the outside clearly depicts the emotional toll of fame and the common human need for real connections rather than celebrity cannot always provide. Neil Diamond's personal life experienced its fair share of 3 weddings represent the complications. He married his first wife to his high Jay Parsner, a school sweetheart, in 1963. Jay taught at schools, and the two of them, Marjorie, one of their two daughters, Ellen, as well. But this early tale of love concluded rather swiftly. They parted ways in 1967, and they concluded their separation in 1969. Although there was no stated cause for the divorce is communicated clearly, the time of its dissolution corresponds with a time frame of severe early career difficulties for Diamond, along with his attempts to sell songs and joining Columbia Records only to be abandoned, and the start of his acrimonious contract battles with Bang Records. In his later years, he publicly acknowledged that I felt bad about not more time with my children, because I was journeying. He mirrored that song as well, frequently acted as his primary mistress, and that his second marriage didn't work out because he was pressed for time, physically or emotionally abandoned for his relatives. These further contemplations, when seen within the framework of his strenuous, early professional life, imply that the tremendous concentration needed to enter the music industry and the battle for innovative control probably left little emotional or physical area for raising a child, family, and marriage. In 1969, Neil Marcia Murphy, his second wife, was married. He had met a production assistant during his rise to prominence. They had two Micah and Jessica sons. This union lasted for 25 years, a noteworthy era of his life. But in 1994, in her divorce filing, Marcia cited differences that cannot be reconciled. The resulting financial settlement was astounding, said to be $150 million, amount that would be more than $300 million today. Because of this, it's among the priciest divorces in past. In spite of the enormous financial loss, Neil declared in public that Marcia was well worth the money, suggesting a very low level of hostility between them during the separation. But he did bear a heavy burden of guilt on this lengthy marriage's failure and, generally speaking, about not being there sufficient for his kids because of his unrelenting tour schedule. To face these intense emotions, he participated in years of intense psychotherapy, gaining the ability to communicate and recognize the complexity of himself. This healing process benefited him, control his guilt and accountability, finally allowing him to halt suffering himself because of the past and discover a deeper level of calm. A fresh, new era of friendship and love begun. When Neil was 70 years old in 2011, declared his engagement to Katie. His manager, McNeil, was 41 years old at the time. In Los Angeles, they got married in 2012. At over 3 decades of age gap may appear substantial, Neil stated that he believed he was 30 to 40 years old. Additionally, Katie, in spite of first misgivings, revealed that she believed their ages were same when they were in unison. At first she hesitated to engage with a customer, yet there was no denying chemistry. Neil, with his distinctive candor, characterized himself as extremely high maintenance, but claimed that at last he discovered someone capable of serving as my spouse. Since then, Katie has developed into a constant source of assistance, especially following his Parkinson's diagnosis, negotiating this difficult new phase in his life with him. 2018 brought with it the most significant and a task that would change Neil's life. Diamond, January, shortly before his. For his 77th birthday, he was given the terrible Parkinson's disease diagnosis illness. Because of this neurodegenerative disease, a disease of progressive movement, directly affects the central nervous system, impacting an individual's capacity to regulate motion, preserve equilibrium, and even well-spoken words. It was a diagnosis that caused shockwaves to his globe, and millions of people's hearts whole-loved his music. Parkinson's disease symptoms became so evident that his physicians provided a challenging suggestion. He had to give up traveling large-scale concerts. This required cancelling the remaining displays of his historic 50th birthday tour, a choice he made with considerable unwillingness and disappointment. Consider the burden of the instant. As a performer, you have spent 50 years thrilling audiences everywhere, abruptly confronting, and that lively stage life came to an abrupt end. For him, it was a devastating time, and his millions of loyal followers, signifying a sudden quiet following, decades of boisterous gatherings and strong performances. Parkinson's disease is a persistent, worsening illness. It assaults the fundamental basis of movement by progressively leading to nerve cells in the brain to die and stop working. These important cells are in charge of generating dopamine, an essential neurotransmitter responsible for coordinating fluid, well-coordinated motions throughout your physique. When dopamine levels fall, the ability of the organism to regulate its own behavior decreases. Typical symptoms start to appear, frequently quietly at first, then becoming more noticeable. You may notice shakes at rest, a shuddering that can deteriorate considerably under stress. Slower movements, a condition referred to as bradykinesis. Issues with equilibrium, resulting in a shuffle gait and a higher chance of falling. Limbs may become rigid and unyielding, making even basic tasks difficult. 4. A performer and singer such as Neil Diamond. These signs indicate a particularly cruel test. His strong vocal performance, his vivacious stage appearance, the instruments of his profession has held viewers' attention for decades, are specifically attacked by the progressive characteristics of the illness. Parkinson's disease can induce notable alterations in speech, resulting in a quiet, mumbled, slurred, or monotonous voice, a disorder called hyperphonia, brought on by insufficient coordination in the muscles of the voice. Having trouble chewing or swallowing, which is referred to as dysphasia, seem in addition to constrained handwriting. In addition to the physical, many Parkinson's disease patients also suffer from melancholy and apathy, contributing an additional level of intricacy to their everyday existence. Although the particulars of Neil's everyday physical challenges keep quiet, the illness unquestionably makes daily tasks challenging and significantly affects one's career capacities. This is an example of existential danger to his career, making him face a different reality if his body is no longer completely compliant with his will. The choice to stop touring, despite the fact that he can still sing, demonstrates the significant influence of the illness on the level and scope of his performance was what he expected. Yes, they could still sing, but the entire dynamic performance that shaped his career became an unachievable goal. It compelled him to reinterpret his connection with his art and his viewership, departing from the large international stage to a smaller kind of production. Neil stated that his initial reaction to the diagnosis was a deeply denial. He spent the first year or two merely declined to accept the seriousness of his illness. He shared his, "I have work to do, so I'll see," said the doctor. "You later." Disregarding the severe actuality, acknowledging Parkinson's was really difficult, he admitted. Additionally, he acknowledged years later, "I'm still carrying it out, and I dislike it." Strife. This unvarnished truth shows the enormous psychological cost of such a diagnosis. As you can imagine, the internal combat, the conflict with a force that you cannot win. But in the middle of this arduous battle, Neil also discovered a deep, unexpected new serenity. He explained how a state of calm has entered life's hurricane, and everything have become quite silent, contrasting it with Thea Recording Studio's silence. This stirring emotional voyage from struggle and denial resulted in a significant inner tranquility and acceptance. In spite of the physical restrictions placed by Parkinson's disease, Neil Diamond found greater self-awareness and contentment. He discovers that he now likes himself more and is less taxing for individuals. "I'm more forgiving myself." He's come to value his blessings in greater detail, demonstrating that, although music provided him with a prosperous career, he occasionally struggled to actually thank you. He now realizes that he is unable to effectively combat this issue and no remedy exists. No keep your distance from it. He's learned to accept his restrictions, yet still have wonderful experiences days, expressing sincere appreciation for his life to date. This implies that genuine well-being is not only reliant on one's physical prowess or outside achievement, but frequently arises from facing and embracing life's most severe facts. Although he retired from Neil Diamond's extensive touring has not cease producing. He keeps on compose and record music while modifying his imaginative method to his present capacities. Even at the age of 84, he continues to sing. He describes it with a song that makes him feel nice, as a sensation in which every system in my body and mind are functioning as one. This ongoing involvement in his passion is essential to his health, as professionals such as Dr. Marianne Piccone, Holyam Medical Center's medical director, the MS Center at the center, stressed that maintaining enjoyable pastimes is essential for those with neurodegenerative conditions to preserve identity, mission, physical attributes, and mental well-being. In a moving and in an unforgettable moment, he surprised participation in the Broadway production of the Neil Diamond Beautiful Noise 2022 musical, taking the audience by storm in a sentimental rendition of Sweetheart Caroline. Additionally, he keeps using his important forum for increasing awareness regarding Parkinson's illness, assisting in dispel the public's misconceptions about the illness and support important research initiatives. His Katie McNeil, his wife, is by his side, offering steadfast assistance as they traverse this difficult new phase, collectively. His sustained prosperity additionally illustrates his enduring influence, with his estimated net worth remains at about $300 million. The voyage of Neil Diamond stands as a potent illustration of human resilience. His early years were characterized by ongoing transformation and the battle turbulent. He fought hard and for a long time,